Cheyenne and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. And today I decided to do a story time about a situation that happened to me when I was 16 and I worked at Subway. Subway was my first job ever. I started working there when I was 15 and, late 15. And then I worked there until I was about 21. So I made a lot of sandwiches, and I could say I'm a pro sandwich maker. Actually, we're called sandwich artists, and it was a fun job, but the situation did happen and it was a little scary, and I wanted to share that with you today. So when I was 16, I was working one day, and this gentleman came in, and right away he came up to me and started asking me questions about ordering party platters. And party platters at Subway are basically sandwich trays that we make for catering events. And he basically was talking to me about prices and what was included on these and how far in advance he needed to order them, yada yada yada. And this guy was probably in his late 30s, early 40s. He was really, really nice, and I was just telling him, details about ordering these party platters. And after we were done with the conversation, he was like, "Thank you so much," and he asked me what my name was. I told him it was Cheyenne, and he was like, "Thank you, you've been so helpful." He was like, "You seem like a great employee," and he was like, "I'll be calling or coming in if I want to place an order." And, this happened all the time at Subway, so I was like, "Okay, yeah, cool, thank you, have a nice day, whatever." And that was the end of it. Well, a couple of days had passed, and we actually got a phone call there, and my manager came up to me, and she was handing me the phone. She's like, "Hey, this is for you." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I answered it, and the voice on the phone was like, "Hey, Cheyenne, I actually think his name was Matt. This is Matt. I came in yesterday, or a couple days ago, to talk about party platters." And I was like, "Oh, hi." I was like, "Did you want to place that order?" I was like, "Did you decide what you needed?" And he was like, "No." He's like, "Actually, I want to talk to you about offering you a job." And I was like, "What? A job?" And he was like, "Yeah, I own this real estate company, and I think you'd be really great, and I would love for you to work for me, and I could train you one day to be a real estate agent." And at the time, in my mind, 16-year-old mind, I'm like, hell yeah, like, I'm the best employee ever, and this guy wants me to work for him, and I'm like, woo, like, loving life. Like, I think I'm just, like, the best sandwich artist ever, and, like, the greatest employee ever. And I was really, really flattered. And I said, "Oh, like, okay." I was like, "But I am, only 16, and all this stuff." And he was basically like, "Oh, that's not a problem. Like, I can train you, and I think you'd be a great asset to my company." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like, that's amazing." And he was like, "What time do you get off work tonight?" And being 16 and dumb, I was like, "Oh, I get off at 11. And he was like, "Well, can you meet me after you get off work?" And I have this gut feeling like, well, that's really late. Like, why would he want to meet me after work? Like, why would he want to meet me, like, on my day off, like, in the morning, like, at 11 o'clock at night? You want to meet me for, like, a job interview thing? I thought that was weird to me. And I was like, "Well, that's pretty late." And he's like, "Well, it's fine. I know you work, and I don't mind meeting you, late after work if that's the only time that you have available." And I was like, "No." I was like, "Well, we can, meet another time." I was like, "I think that's a little late." And I was like, "I have to get home." And he was like, "Okay, not a problem." And he's like, "Well, what's your phone number so I can keep in touch with you?" And I, again, got that gut feeling like I shouldn't give him my phone number. So I said, "Well, you can just call me on the Subway phone, here at work, if you want to get a hold of me." And he was like, "Well, when's the next day you're going to work?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working here the rest of the week." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll get in touch with you." And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Thanks, bye." And right away, I I went and told people that I work with. I was like, this guy called and he like offered me a job. And my manager at the time, which was an older lady, she was like, that's weird. Like, why would this older guy offer you a job? Like, he doesn't even know you. He met you for like 5 seconds and you talked about party platters. Like, why would he want to offer you a job? And in my mind, I'm like, well, because, you know, I'm amazing, but I'm being my cocky 16-year-old self. And she was like, no, Cheyenne, like, that's weird. And I was like, So I started to think about it. I'm like, well, maybe it is kind of odd. So, got freaking hair in my mouth. Ugh. Okay. Anyways, back to the story. And so I decided to go home. Well, I didn't decide to go home. My shift ended, so I went home. And my mom was home, and I told her about the situation. And she was like, basically said the same thing my manager said. She's like, no, Cheyenne, that's weird. You know, you're only 16. He doesn't know you. You know, no. Like, you don't need to go meet him anywhere. Don't meet him anywhere. And if he comes in a subway to talk to you, you need to let your manager know so they can speak to him, because she's like, that's inappropriate. And I was like, okay. And so I carried on, you know, I went back to work, and a few days later he actually ended up calling again. And this time I answered the phone, and he was like, hi Cheyenne, this is Matt, and have you thought about, you know, when we can meet and to talk about this job? And I said, since I'd been thinking about it, and I talked to my mom and everything, I said, you know, that I'm not really interested in the job, and that I like my job at Subway, and I'm only 16, and, you know, thank you for thinking of me, but, you know, it's just not something that I'm interested in. And I could tell that his attitude kind of changed a little bit, like he was kind of irritated by it. And he was like, okay, well, thanks, have a nice day. And he hung up the phone, and I was like, no, okay. Like, I felt like I made him mad, which, again, I was like, what normal person would get mad about that unless they had other intentions, you know? Is which I feel about it now. But, so again, that was it. Nothing happened. Went on working. And one day, you know, it's lunch hour. We're really, really busy. And if you ever worked at Subway or probably any restaurant, lunch hour from like 12 to 2 is like your busy time. And we're up there making tons of sandwiches. We're not really paying attention. And I happen to glance up and I see him standing outside the restaurant, because this side of the restaurant was basically a bunch of glass windows. And I see him standing out there. And I'm like, oh my God, why is he standing out there? And I'm like, well, maybe he's just getting a sandwich. So I'm carrying on with my job, you know, making sandwiches. And 10 minutes have gone by, and now I've noticed that he's sitting like at the picnic table outside and just sitting there like staring at me and staring at all of us making sandwiches. And I'm like, well, that's weird. I was like, maybe he's waiting for the lunch rush to end so he can talk to me. Like, I didn't understand it, but I was like, all right, whatever. So the lunch rush starts to die down to where people are leaving, and he's still sitting out there. And I'm like, all right, this is getting creepy. Like, he's just staring at us. And then all of a sudden he just gets up and he leaves. And I'm like, well, that's really weird. Like, he didn't order a sandwich or anything. He didn't talk to anybody. But I just kind of keep it to myself, and I'm like, maybe something came up. Maybe he had to leave. Maybe he decided not to talk to me. I don't know. So more days go by, and he shows back up again. And this time he actually comes into the restaurant, and I see him, and he just sits at a booth, and he doesn't order anything again. He's just staring. Like, he doesn't like wave if you make eye contact with him. He doesn't smile. Like, he's just kind of creepy. Like, he's just sitting there like staring. And so I tell my manager, I'm like, you know, that's the guy that called, and I was like, I noticed him in here a few days ago and he didn't order anything, and now he's back, he's not ordering anything. And she told me to stay in the back and just run the drive-through, and that if he comes up or asks for me, that she'll talk to him. And I'm like, okay. So I worked the drive-through, and again, the back of the restaurant, you know, the drive-through, there's big windows, and I noticed that he, like 10, 15 minutes later, I see him leaving, like walking out of the parking lot. And I don't see him go to a car or anything, I see him walking. So in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, maybe he lives around here or works around here. I don't know. But he's leaving, and that's all I really care about. I'm like, okay, well, at least he's leaving. And I go up front and ask my manager, I'm like, did you ask him to leave, or did he try to talk to you? And she's like, no. She's like, he just left. I was like, oh, okay. And we talked about it a little bit and said how weird it was. And again, didn't think much of it. Well, I go home, tell my mom, and she was like, this is weird, I don't like this. She wanted to file a police report, or at least go and notify the police that he was coming into my work and not ordering anything and just kind of staring at me. Which 16-year-old me, I was like embarrassed of, and I was like, I don't want to go down there, but you know, you have to do what your mom wants to do. So we went down there, filed the police report. I told them that his name was Matt, and they actually asked if they could talk to the owner of Subway and get a picture of him off the security cameras. And I was like, yeah, sure, you know, whatever you want to do. And they talked to my owner, or the owner of Subway, and my manager, and the cops actually told her that I shouldn't be closing alone, because when you close, you're actually by yourself from like 8 to 11. And they said that they didn't think that was appropriate for me, you know, in this situation, that either I shouldn't be closing or maybe I should close with somebody. The owner agreed, so I wasn't too happy because I was either getting sent home early and someone else was closing, or, you know, I just felt awkward because other people would have to stay longer and work with me. I wasn't allowed to go to my car by myself on my break, so I had to stay in the restaurant. And, you know, I just kind of felt awkward about it, but I understood it, so I did it. And a couple weeks went by, nothing really happened, and, you know, I actually got scheduled to close, but I was closing with another girl because I couldn't close alone. And she was like in training, so I was training her to close, and then of course it wouldn't leave me by myself. So we're closing, and I'm doing a drive-thru in the back, and I notice him out in the parking lot in the back. And he is standing, he's actually smoking a cigarette standing next to a van. And I was like, oh, that's creepy. Automatically, like, you know, vans, no offense to people that drive vans, but like, you know, when you see a van, you not every van, but when you see, you know, there's that stigma of the creepy guy at the van. And like, that's automatic my mind went to, because he was standing next to a brown van. It was creepy. And this is a guy that's been like coming in and just staring at me. So I was like, great. Now he owns a van too. Like, fantastic. But I seen him. So I tell the girl I'm closing with, I'm like, the guy's out there. I was like, he's sitting out in the parking lot. And this was like 9 o'clock. And she was like, oh, we should call the owner. So I called the owner of Subway. She only lives like a couple blocks away. And she's like, okay, I'll come down. Well, by the time she gets down there, he had already left. He was gone. So she gets there and she asks me if I want to go home. And I'm like, no, it's okay. And she's like, okay, just call me if anything else happens. And you girls, you know, nobody leave early. You guys stay together, leave together. And, you know, don't walk out by yourself. Don't take out the trash by yourself. That kind of stuff. I was like, okay. So we finish up closing, you know, we get done with closing a little after 11. We both walk out to our cars. She gets in her car, I get in my car. And we start to pull out of the parking lot. And I happen to notice that the van that looks very similar to the one that he was standing next to is actually parked at the 7-Eleven that was across the street. And I noticed someone sitting in it. And as soon as I drive past 7-Eleven, because I'm already kind of noticing it, I see it pull out, back out at the 7-Eleven and get right behind me and start following me down the road. And I'm like, oh shit, like, is this the guy? I was like, crud, you know, this is totally him. And that's when it got scary. I was like, oh my God, he's following me. So I'm trying to call my mom. She's not answering. You know, it's past 11. She's probably sleeping. I'm deciding if I should call the police or if I'm overreacting or maybe it's not him. So I'm like, well, I'm just gonna drive, because I actually lived like 15 miles from where my work was. So I'm like, maybe they'll pull off, or you know, whatever. So I'm driving and I'm constantly looking in my rearview mirror at him, and I decided to take a bunch of different roads to either try to lose him or see if they would eventually quit following me, like if it was just, you know, a different person. So I turn on this one road, you know, the van turns down the same exact road, follows me. I turn down this other road, follows me. Other road follows me. And I'm like, oh my God, this van's actually following me. And I'm like, oh, like what? So I'm still trying to call my mom. She's not answering. I'm freaking out. I actually drive past my house because I don't want to go park at my house. I'm afraid they're going to get out too. And I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, trying to throw me into this creepy van or something. So luckily my mom finally calls me back and she's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, I think the guy that was coming to Subway all the time is following me. I was like, I seen him tonight. There's this van that keeps following me. I've gone down all these random roads. And she like cuts me off immediately. And she's like, come home. She's like, where are you? She's like, drive home. Pull into the driveway. She's like, I'm going to stand out there. So he sees me. And she said, if he gets out or anything, she's like, I'm going to handle it. And I'm like, all right, you know, okay. So I, again, turn around, start driving back to my house. The van's still following me. And we actually lived down this, like, alley. So you'd have to drive down this gravel alley to turn into our driveway. Because the front of our house didn't have a driveway, so you had to park in the back of it. So I'm thinking in my mind, like, well, maybe if I turn down the alley, this van will drive off. Well, it doesn't. It continues to follow me down the alley. So in my mind right then, I'm like, okay, this is definitely this guy. And he's following me home. And so I pull into my driveway. I see my mom standing out there, like, in her robe, like, mom mode, like, pissed, getting ready to beat this guy up. And I see her, and automatically I'm relieved. I'm like, whew. So I pull in the driveway, open my door, and this van stops right behind my car. So his driver's side is like looking like at the driveway, like right behind my car. And I opened my door to get out, and I'm assuming they then saw whoever, you know, if it was this guy, I'm pretty sure it was, saw my mom, because then all of a sudden they just start driving again, like they pull away. And my mom's like, she's basically saying to look at the license plate number, so we're trying to read it, but it's dark, couldn't really see it. We got like the first few numbers of it, and she asked me if I happened to get the license plate number. I didn't, which I wish I would have, but at the time I was scared and I didn't really think about it. So we go into the house. She says in the morning she's going to notify the police and that, you know, she's going to handle this. And I'm like, okay, good, because creepy. And the next morning we go to the police station again and tell them the situation. We file a report. We tell them the first, you know, I described the van to them. I asked if they found out who the guy was. They said they couldn't tell couldn't find anyone from the surveillance cameras. You know, they didn't match it to anybody. They advised me not to work late at Subway. So the next few months I didn't work, you know, I didn't really close at Subway. But that was it. Like, he disappeared. I never saw him again. He never came back into Subway that I seen or noticed. I never was followed again back home. He never called for me. So I don't know if the police found him and talked to him. I don't know if, you know, what happened. If he moved, if he just, my mom scared him off, which my mom can be pretty scary, so maybe. But I don't know what happened, but he just disappeared. But I think about it now to this day, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what could have happened? Like, he clearly had very bad intentions. Like, what if I didn't tell somebody and I went and met him? Or what if my mom wasn't home? Or I didn't notice that he was following me? Like, all this crazy stuff. And I'm just very relieved that I had that gut feeling and I followed that gut feeling, because it's so scary. I have no clue what could have happened. Like, it's terrifying to me. But thank God that God was watching over me and was like, Cheyenne, this is creepy and you need to tell somebody, because, whew, I don't know. But yeah, that's happened to me when I was 16, and it was super scary. And you know, the thing that I learned from it is to trust your gut feeling. And even when I met him originally, I thought he was a really nice guy, and I didn't get that creepy vibe from him, but what he was saying and how he was acting and offering a 16-year-old a job and all that type of stuff, it was odd. And if you have that gut feeling about somebody that they're, you're getting that bad vibe, to trust that gut feeling. And to also tell people, like, in that situation, if I didn't tell anybody and I didn't get their opinion of it, because when he first told me about the job, I was like, oh, like, I was kind of flattered. But, tell people get other people's opinions, and then trust that gut instinct. But yeah, it was a crazy thing that happened, and I don't know what's going on with him now. I kind of looked at the news for a while to see, if something would come up about him, and I didn't notice him or see him. But yeah, I've kind of kept an eye out for real estate companies to see if I've seen his picture anywhere, and I haven't, so I don't know if that was a lie. I'm assuming it was. But yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, always trust that gut instinct. But yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope everyone had a safe and happy 4th of July, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Alright, bye guys.